Welcome back to Psychological Depth. In today's episode, we'll be diving into the topic, Men Were Right About Modern Women. There's something men have been saying for years in comment sections, in private conversations, in the quiet frustration of their own minds. They've been saying that women, particularly young, attractive women, live in a different reality. A reality where validation falls from the sky like rain, where emotional support appears on demand, where the world conspires to make life just a little bit easier in ways that are invisible to everyone except the men who don't receive the same treatment. And for years, men have been told they're wrong, they're bitter, they're jealous, they're making excuses for their own failures. The mainstream narrative says women have it harder, women face discrimination, women are objectified, women struggle in ways men can't understand. And there's truth in some of that, but there's also a massive blind spot, a reality that nobody wants to acknowledge because acknowledging it would upset too many comfortable assumptions. Today we're going to talk about the privilege that modern women secretly live with. Not economic privilege, although that exists in certain forms, not legal privilege, although arguments can be made there too, but something more subtle, more pervasive, more psychologically significant. The privilege of constant social validation, the privilege of attention, the privilege of living inside a feedback loop that tells you every single day that you matter, that you're wanted, that you're enough. This isn't an attack, this is an observation, and by the end of this video, both men and women will understand something about modern life that's been hiding in plain sight. Let me start with what actually happens when an attractive woman exists on social media. She posts a photo, nothing special, maybe a selfie, maybe a casual shot from her day. Within minutes, the likes start rolling in, then the comments, beautiful, stunning queen, fire emojis, heart emojis. The algorithm picks it up, pushes it further, more likes, more comments. By the end of the day, she's received more positive feedback than some men get in a month. And this isn't a one-time event. This is daily, weekly, constant. Every time she opens her phone, there's a little hit of validation waiting for her. Someone thought she was attractive enough to double tap. Someone took the time to write something nice. Someone somewhere is thinking about her right now. The phone buzzes, another like, another comment, another tiny dopamine hit confirming that yes, she matters. Now, let me describe what happens when an average man exists on social media. He posts a photo, same effort, same attempt to share his life, and nothing. Maybe a few likes from friends, maybe a comment from his mom. The algorithm ignores him because there's no engagement to amplify. His post dies in obscurity, seen by a handful of people who scrolled past without stopping. No validation, no confirmation, just silence. This isn't a minor difference. This is two completely different psychological realities. She lives in a world where approval is ambient, constant, taken for granted. He lives in a world where approval must be earned, fought for, and is never guaranteed. She wakes up to notifications that make her feel wanted. He wakes up to an inbox that reminds him he's invisible. And here's what men understand that nobody wants to admit. That constant validation isn't just nice. It's not just a pleasant bonus. It fundamentally changes how you experience life. When you receive regular confirmation that you're valued, your baseline psychology shifts. You walk differently, you speak differently, you expect differently. You develop a cushion of self-worth that absorbs life's inevitable blows. When something bad happens, you have reserves of validation to draw from. The world has told you over and over that you're enough, so setbacks feel temporary, manageable, survivable. Men don't have that cushion. When life hits a man, he's absorbing the blow with nothing behind him. No accumulated validation to soften the impact, no reserves of "you're amazing" to counteract the "you failed." He has to generate his own self-worth internally from scratch with no external reinforcement. And while that builds certain kinds of strength, it also creates a fundamentally harder psychological existence. Let me give you an example. Imagine a woman has a bad day at work. Her boss criticized her, a project fell through, she feels low. What happens when she gets home? She opens Instagram.
There are the likes.
There are the comments. There's the DM from a guy she matched with saying she seems really cool. There's the notification that her story was viewed 300 times. Within minutes, the bad day is counterbalanced. The world is still telling her she matters, even if her boss didn't. Now imagine a man has the same bad day, same criticism, same failed project. He gets home, he opens his phone, nothing. No validation waiting, no chorus of approval to counteract the failure. He sits with the feeling unmediated, raw. He has to process it alone using only internal resources. The bad day stays bad. It might even spiral because there's no external force pushing back against the negative self-talk. This is the privilege men have been pointing at. Not money, not opportunity, but the constant, ambient, taken-for-granted experience of being told you're valuable. Women swim in this like fish swim in water. They don't even notice it because it's always been there. But men notice because they're standing on the shore, watching, wondering what that must feel like. Now, let me talk about what this validation does over time, because it's not just about feeling good in the moment, it shapes life decisions in profound ways. When you receive constant confirmation that you're desirable, you develop a sense that time is on your side. You don't feel urgency. Why would you? The attention keeps coming, the options keep appearing. Every year, there are more likes, more comments, more DMs from interested men. The feedback loop says, you're in demand, you have value, there's no rush. This creates what I call the illusion of endless time. A woman at 25 feels like she has forever. A woman at 28 still feels like she has forever. Even at 32, the attention is still coming, maybe slightly reduced, but still present. The algorithm hasn't abandoned her yet. Men still slide into her DMs. The validation continues, and with it, the sense that she can delay major life decisions indefinitely. So she delays. She focuses on her career, she travels, she finds herself. She dates casually without committing because why commit when options are abundant? She thinks about marriage and family as things for someday, a someday that feels distant because the present is so full of confirmation that she's doing fine. But here's what the validation doesn't tell her. Biological reality doesn't care about Instagram likes. The fertility window doesn't check her follower account. The relationship market operates on different rules than the attention market. And by the time she realizes that the attention was a misleading signal, by the time she understands that likes don't translate to commitment, that DMs don't translate to husbands, that being desired doesn't mean being chosen, years have passed. Important years. Years that can't be recovered. I've seen this pattern hundreds of times. A woman coasting on validation through her 20s, assuming she can settle down whenever she wants, finally decides at 34 that she's ready for something serious. And she discovers with genuine shock that the market has changed. The men she wants, the established, successful, commitment-ready men, they're dating younger women now. The validation that once felt infinite has started to thin. The options that once seemed endless have quietly narrowed, and she feels betrayed. By who? By what? She can't quite articulate it. But the truth is, she was betrayed by the illusion. The constant attention told her she was winning when she was actually spending. It told her she had time when time was running out. It gave her a false sense of security that prevented her from making decisions while she had maximum leverage. Men don't experience the same illusion. For men, the world is stingy with validation from the start. No one is liking your selfies and making you feel desired. No one is sliding into your DMs confirming your options. You know from early adulthood that you have to build value because value isn't given. You know that time matters because no one is reassuring you that it doesn't. The absence of external validation forces a kind of realism that the presence of validation delays. This might be why men, on average, seem more aware of the need to build careers, accumulate resources, and position themselves strategically for the future. It's not that men are smarter or more disciplined, it's that men don't have a cushion of attention telling them they can relax. The pressure is felt immediately, so the response comes earlier. Now, let me talk about what constant validation does to character, because this is where things get uncomfortable. When you're told every single day that you're amazing, beautiful, special,
worthy of attention, what happens to your ego? It inflates. Not dramatically, not overnight, but gradually, steadily. The external feedback seeps in and becomes internal belief.
You start to think on some level that you actually are more special than others, that you actually do deserve more, that the preferential treatment you receive is simply the natural order of things. This is how entitlement develops, not through intentional arrogance, but through environmental conditioning. When everyone treats you like you're exceptional, you start to believe you're exceptional. When men compete for your attention, you start to expect men to compete for your attention. When doors open effortlessly, you start to assume doors should open effortlessly. The privilege becomes invisible to you because it's all you've ever known. And then something interesting happens in relationships. Women conditioned by constant validation often bring unconscious expectations that men find baffling. She expects him to pursue, to prove himself, to demonstrate value because that's what men have always done with her. She expects admiration to flow in her direction because admiration has always flowed in her direction. When it doesn't, when a man treats her as an equal rather than a prize, something feels wrong to her. She might not be able to articulate why, but it feels like disrespect. This is the entitlement that men sense and struggle to name. It's not that she's consciously arrogant. It's that she's been shaped by a lifetime of lopsided feedback into someone who genuinely doesn't understand what equal treatment feels like. She's been so elevated by attention that equality feels like demotion. Let me contrast this with what I've observed about genuinely humble women, because they exist and they stand out precisely because they're so rare. Every now and then you meet a woman who is objectively attractive but seems genuinely unaware of it, not performing humility, actually humble. She doesn't expect doors to open. She doesn't assume male attention is her right. She treats people well not because she's strategizing, but because it doesn't occur to her that she's entitled to special treatment. These women are remarkable precisely because they escaped the conditioning. Maybe they grew up in environments where appearance wasn't emphasized. Maybe they developed their identity around something other than attractiveness. Maybe they just have the rare psychological constitution that resists ego inflation. Whatever the reason, they didn't internalize the validation, and the result is a quality of character that's visible immediately and valued deeply. Men can sense the difference instantly. A humble, beautiful woman feels fundamentally different from an entitled one. The humble one is easy to be around. The entitled one creates constant low-level stress. The humble one treats relationships as partnerships. The entitled one treats relationships as performances where she's the star. The humble one is grateful. The entitled one is expectant. And here's the tragedy. The entitled woman usually has no idea. She thinks her expectations are normal because within her reality, they are normal. She's never been told otherwise. The world has catered to her for so long that catering feels like baseline. She'll read this and think, that's not me. But the very fact that she can't see it is proof that it is her. Let me talk about what social media has done to amplify all of this, because the dynamic I'm describing isn't new. Attractive women have always received more attention than others, but social media has put gasoline on the fire. Before Instagram, an attractive woman received validation in person, at parties, at work, walking down the street. This was significant but limited. She could only be in so many places, interact with so many people. The validation was bounded by physical reality. Now she carries a validation machine in her pocket. She can receive confirmation of her desirability from thousands of people across the world at any moment. The scale has exploded. The feedback is instant and constant. She never has to wonder if she's attractive because her phone tells her every few hours. The cushion of validation that once came from occasional compliments now comes from a fire hose of digital approval. And this creates a power imbalance in dating that neither side fully understands. She walks into a date with 500 recent notifications telling her she's wanted. He walks in with whatever internal confidence he's managed to build from scratch. She's been pre-warmed by attention. He's starting cold. She has abundance. He has scarcity. The psychological positions are completely unequal before a single word is exchanged. This is why modern dating feels so broken for men. They're not competing against the guy across the table. They're competing against a phone full of validation that tells her she has infinite options. They're fighting for attention from someone who's drowning in attention. They're trying to be special to someone who's been told she's special 1,000 times this week.
And the women, they're often confused about why relationships feel unsatisfying, why men seem low effort, why nothing quite lives up to the hype. They don't realize that the hype itself is the problem. The validation has inflated their expectations to levels that reality can't match. They're comparing real men to the fantasy composite built from thousands of admiring strangers. No actual human being can compete with that. Let me talk about the trap, because everything I've described sounds like advantage, privilege, a good deal. But there's a dark side that takes years to reveal itself. Validation feels good in the moment, but creates long-term risks. The first risk is the timing illusion I already mentioned. Attention makes you feel like you have forever, and then you don't. The second risk is the dependency it creates. When you're used to external validation, you become unable to generate internal validation. Your self-worth becomes contingent on the approval of others. And when that approval fades, as it inevitably does with age, you're left with nothing. I've met women in their 40s who were clearly beautiful in their youth. You can still see it. But the attention has dried up. The likes don't come like they used to. The DMs have slowed to a trickle, and they're in psychological crisis. Not because anything bad happened to them, but because the validation that structured their entire self-concept has been withdrawn. They don't know who they are without it. They never developed an internal sense of worth because external worth was always available. This is why I say the attention is a trap. It feels like a gift, but it's actually a loan that comes due later in life with interest. The woman who builds her identity on being desired will suffer when desire fades. The woman who relies on external validation will crumble when external validation dries up. The privilege of youth becomes the poverty of middle age if nothing deeper was built. Men, meanwhile, often improve with age, not because men are superior, but because men were forced to build internal value from the start. The man who developed his career, his character, his competence, these compound over time. He's more valuable at 40 than he was at 25. His trajectory is upward, while hers is often downward. Not because of unfairness, but because of the different investments made in youth. This is the brutal asymmetry of modern dating markets. Women start with abundance and trend towards scarcity. Men start with scarcity and trend toward abundance, if they build correctly. She peaks early on external validation, he peaks later on accumulated value. And somewhere in the middle, their trajectories cross. But by then, she's often confused about why her advantages disappeared, and he's often not interested in someone who didn't value him when she had other options. Let me address the awareness issue, because everything I've said so far could be seen as an attack on women. It's not. It's an observation about dynamics that affect women whether they're aware of them or not. And awareness is actually the way out. A woman who understands these dynamics can navigate them intelligently. She can enjoy the validation without letting it distort her perception of time. She can appreciate the attention without letting it inflate her ego. She can recognize that likes and DMs don't translate to commitment or long-term value. She can make relationship decisions based on actual compatibility rather than waiting for something better to come along in her feed. This woman chooses well while she has maximum options. She commits when commitment is offered by someone worthy. She doesn't coast on attention into her mid-30s wondering why the market shifted. She understands the game board and plays accordingly. And ironically, she often ends up happier than the women who had more attention but less awareness. The women who suffer most are the ones who never see the trap, who ride the validation wave without questioning where it leads, who mistake attention for value, options for security, likes for love. These women wake up at 38 still posting selfies to diminishing returns, wondering why the abundant life they expected never materialized. They were told they were winning, they felt like they were winning, the feedback loop confirmed it every single day, but they were spending capital, not accumulating it, and now the account is overdrawn. Let me talk about what men should take from all of this. Because understanding the dynamic doesn't automatically tell you how to operate within it. First, stop resenting the privilege. Yes, it exists. Yes, it's unearned. Yes, it creates advantages you don't have. But resentment changes nothing. The world is structured this way. Attention flows to attractiveness. Validation inflates egos. These are facts, not injustices to be corrected. Spend your energy on things you can control.
not on things you can't. Second, understand what you're competing against. When you're dating, you're not just competing against other men, you're competing against a validation ecosystem that's been telling her she's special for years. Adjust your expectations accordingly. Don't be surprised when she seems entitled, picky, or oblivious to your value. She's been conditioned to expect more than reality offers. That's not your fault or her fault, it's the environment. Third, build the value that doesn't depreciate. Attention-based value fades with youth. Competence-based value compounds with time. Your career, your health, your character, your social circle, your purpose, these become more valuable as you age if you invest in them correctly. You're playing a different game than she is. Play it well and time becomes your ally instead of your enemy. Fourth, select for awareness. If you're looking for a partner, look for women who show signs of understanding these dynamics. Women who don't seem addicted to validation. Women who've developed identity beyond appearance. Women who treat you like an equal rather than an applicant. These women are rarer, but they're out there, and they're worth searching for because they won't bring the entitlement that makes relationships exhausting. Fifth, don't try to compete on attention. You will lose. You can't out-validate 1,000 Instagram strangers. Don't try to make her feel special through constant compliments. She's already drowning in compliments. Instead, offer something scarce, genuine investment, real challenge, authentic presence. Be the thing that attention can't provide. That's your competitive advantage. And to the women watching, if any are still here, I want to be clear about something. This isn't an attack on you. It's a warning for you. The validation feels good, I understand. It would feel good to anyone, but it's not your friend. It's distorting your perception, inflating your expectations, and creating a sense of security that doesn't match reality. The likes won't marry you. The comments won't raise your children. The DMs won't hold your hand when life gets hard. They're empty calories that feel nourishing but leave you starving. The women who thrive long-term are the ones who see through the illusion, who understand that attention is not the same as value, who make important life decisions based on reality rather than the fantasy the feedback loop creates, who build internal worth rather than depending on external validation, who choose partners based on character rather than waiting for someone who measures up to an inflated self-image. This is the path to actually getting what you want. Not more likes, not more options, but a stable, fulfilling life with a partner who values you for real reasons. That path requires resisting the easy dopamine of validation and doing the harder work of honest self-assessment. It requires acknowledging that the attention might be lying to you about your situation. It requires humility in a world that's been inflating your ego since you turned 15. I know that's difficult. I know the validation feels truth. I know it seems crazy to question something that feels so good, but the women who question it, who see the trap before it closes, they're the ones who escape, and escaping is worth more than all the likes in the world. Let me bring this to a close with what I think both sides need to understand. So, men were right. Not about everything, not in every formulation, but the core observation that modern women live in a reality of privilege that's invisible to them and frustrating to men. That observation is accurate. It's not bitterness, it's not jealousy, it's pattern recognition. Men see the validation women receive because men experience its absence, and that contrast creates clarity that women themselves often lack. But being right doesn't mean being helpful. Understanding the privilege doesn't automatically improve anyone's life. What matters is what you do with the understanding. For men, use it to calibrate expectations, select wisely, and focus on building value that compounds, rather than resenting advantages you can't access. For women, use it to question the feedback that feels so reliable, make decisions based on reality rather than the illusion, and build an identity that will sustain you when the validation inevitably fades. Both sides are caught in a system that distorts perception and creates frustration. Neither side designed it, neither side can single-handedly fix it, but both sides can navigate it more intelligently once they see it clearly. And that's what I hope this video provides. Clarity, not blame, not shame,
just a clear-eyed look at a dynamic that's shaping millions of lives in ways most people never consciously examine. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. And once you can't unsee it, you can start making better choices. I have more content on navigating modern dating, on building long-term value, on selecting partners who won't bring the entitlement that destroys relationships. Check the description if you want to go deeper. For now, I want to hear from you. Have you observed this privilege dynamic? Have you seen it affect women you know? Have you experienced it in dating? Share your observations not to vent bitterness, but to help others see the patterns that are hiding in plain sight. That's it for today. Understand the game, play it strategically, and never mistake attention for value. So, what are your thoughts on today's topic? Make sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel Psychological Depth so you won't miss any of our upcoming posts. Thanks for tuning in. See you next time.